So President Trump's Postmaster General's in the hot seat as House Democrats have decided to challenge him on his destruction of the Postal Service. So now the second public hearing in a week featured a few fun exchanges, including how he's got no idea what the post office actually does, how it actually runs. As you're going to see, Katie Porter tries to take him to task on that. Take a look.
What is the cost of a first-class postage stamp?
55 cents.
Just wanted to check. What about to mail a postcard?
I don't know, ma'am.
You don't know the cost to mail a postcard?
I don't.
What if I want to mail you said 55 cents for a first-class stamp, but what if it's like one of those greeting cards that's a square envelope? Then what is the postage?
I'll submit that I know very little about a postage stamp.
And what is the weight limit? You are more in the shipping logistics business. What's the weight limit for priority mail?
70 pounds.
And what is the starting rate for U.S. Post Office, USPS priority mail?
The starting rate for what?
USPS priority mail.
Starting weight, 14 ounces.
No, the rate, the price.
I don't know.
Do you know about, within a million or so, can you tell me how many people voted by mail in the last presidential election?
No, I cannot.
To the nearest 10 million? Is that a no, Mr. DeJoy?
I would be guessing, and I don't want to guess.
Okay, so Mr. DeJoy, I'm concerned. I'm glad you know the price of a stamp, but I'm concerned about your understanding of this agency.
All right, so look, those are good questions. Hey, I don't work in the post office, so I don't really know the answer to a lot of these questions either, right? But the difference is that he's the Postmaster General. He should probably know the basic information about the post office, right? About the services that his office is supposed to do. Now, later on, of course, she began asking him about, okay, you're making some changes, right? So you don't know what you're doing, but you're ordering all these changes. And he says, well, I'm not ordering any changes. What are you talking about? It's not my job. Okay, well, if it's not your job as the Postmaster General, then whose job is it? Who ordered those changes at the post office? And of course, those changes included ending unemployment. I'm sorry, not unemployment, but ending overtime, so that people who work there cannot actually get things done as they had before. Removing sorting machines, making it actually take longer to get things done, to actually get the mail out, which causes massive delays. And so he couldn't answer that question either. Who ordered that? I don't know. I don't know who ordered that. So you don't know who ordered that, and yet these things are happening under your watch. So look, are you incompetent in your job? Is basically where that line of questioning eventually ends up. And so he has proven that he is incompetent at this job. And so he clearly doesn't know how this works. And so he also doesn't give a damn about running it effectively. But understand, right? That's on purpose. See, here's the thing. The post office is not supposed to be a business. It's not supposed to make a profit, right? It's supposed to get enough income to fund services, because that's the whole point. The post office is a service that is constitutionally mandated. Now, if it were not required, and this is why it's in trouble, if it were not required by Congress to pre-fund about 75 years of retirement benefits, it would be able to do its services, right, to perform those services, even at a time of crisis like coronavirus, effectively, and to do so in a way that is cost effective, without needing an infusion of cash from Congress. Problem is, as I said before, it's stuck in a position of where it has to pre-fund those retirement benefits, a burden that no for-profit company can certainly bear, and certainly no service that is not for profit. And so those are unique circumstances that are crushing the effectiveness of the post office. So they're not able to do this, right? And so, again, the thing about these Republicans, DeJoy specifically, is that he doesn't want to run the post office effectively. The action he's taken, which is eliminating sorting machines, slowing down the mail, eliminating overtime, again, making it more difficult for people to do their jobs, as well as to afford to pay their bills. I talked about a former postal carrier in Buffalo, Minnesota, I believe, who said, look, without that overtime, I can't pay the bills. I can't feed my family. So I had to quit and get another job. There were also people that were saying that are pretty high up in the post office chain that are saying that, hey, basically we're being ruined from the inside. Okay, we cannot do the things that we're supposed to do. We're not allowed to be able to do the things that we're supposed to do, and it's almost like you're getting sabotaged, right? And so they don't want to do this, and they don't want to run this effectively. And the reason is, again, is that DeJoy has a conflict of interest. In fact, Louis DeJoy and his wife Aldona Was reported between at least $30 million to just over $75 million in assets in a company called XPO Logistics, another company called JB Hunt, as well as UPS. Now, all of them, of course, are competitors with the post office. So, yeah, I think that's got definitely something to do with it, because the logic goes that if you kill or at least reduce the effectiveness of the post office, then you can make the argument to privatize it or reduce the role that the post office has. And in that case, allow these companies to take over some of that business that is normally handled by the post office. And that, of course, makes them money. I could see a situation in which the post office only exists to cover rural areas, which they take a loss on. And, because UPS and the other places won't go because it's far too expensive. That rural delivery, as I said before, costs the most to do. And so people won't do it. These companies won't do it. They're not going to take that loss to deliver medicine out to rural Timbuktu, right? And so if they actually did do this, then they would have to charge an arm and a leg, which is something that people wouldn't be able to do, right? People in these rural areas. And so there's money to be made in undermining the post office and taking over the more profitable areas the post office has done and relegating the post office itself to only being able to do the rural routes that the corporations refuse to do. And so I could definitely see that, okay, or more privatization. And so here's the thing. This is why people like DeJoy can't answer a simple question about what the agency does, because they don't care. They don't care what the agency does. They have one purpose, one task, and that is to basically break down that agency from the inside and allow competitors to make money, right? Because if they make money, DeJoy makes money. And so understand that, by the way, this is how a lot of Trump nominees have operated in the past. A lot of them come from private industry, and they bring conflicts of interest with them. They bring in corruption. They're bringing crime. And so they're not the best people. And they're not the best people that are suited to run these agencies, these services that are supposed to be accessible to every single person. I mean, could you imagine living in a world, because I certainly could, where you have to have a subscription to get your mail? Just $29.95 a month, and you get mail delivered to your house. Is that the future you guys want? Because that's the future Republicans want to bring us. And so that's it. The reaction from Democrats was great. As you saw, Katie Porter, I love when Katie Porter is on the scene. She's on the case, right? Where she actually gets to ask questions. And it became a little combative, where she had to keep reclaiming her time from DeJoy. And afterwards, she says, quote, let's see. It's bad enough the Postmaster General doesn't know the basics of his agency. But to laugh off his ignorance, this isn't a joke for the millions of Americans who rely on the U.S. Postal Service. There's more. Let's see. Representative Alexander Ocasio-Cortez and Carol Maloney said that DeJoy's refusal to clearly commit to handing over his calendars and documents about Postal Service operations during questioning was grounds for subpoena. So they said, we're going to subpoena you if you fail to comply with our requests. And several members of the Oversight Committee, including Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, urged DeJoy to resign during the hearing as he struggled to answer for his changes at the Postal Service. Quote, at best, these actions represent irresponsible leadership from a novice who has absolutely no business leading a government agency, Presley says. At worst, they're cruel, unethical, and anti-democratic. So the squad at work. And so, look, a lot of establishment Democrats wonder, why do people really like the squad? Why did they get reelected? I don't understand. It's because of this. It's because of things like this. And here you had establishment, by the way, media figures, even Kevin Drum, saying, you know what, we should privatize the post office. Maybe it's a pretty good idea to take a conservative idea and a conservative priority and make it happen. No, that's not a good idea. And so people agree with the squad more than they agree with supposed liberal media figures and media in liberal politicians, right? And so, and I mentioned liberal politicians. Representative Jimmy Gomez said he originally wanted to avoid calling on Postmaster General DeJoy to resign, right? But he said he changed his mind. Quote, I do think now it's time for you to resign, not because necessarily there's this grand political conspiracy, but just the incompetence that we've seen when it comes to the Postal Service. You didn't know that people that Donald Trump appoints are incompetent? I mean, it's not necessarily incompetence because of incompetence. It's incompetence because of corruption, right? Yeah, if you don't really care about the agency that you been put in favor of, when you've always been opposed to it, when you make more money off, privatization of these services, then you're not going to care about the operations, and that's it. And so, understand that incompetence comes with the territory. That said, I'm not saying that Louis DeJoy is somebody like Rick Perry, who really was generally a dumb person. I mean, this is a guy who was put in command of the Department of Energy, right, as the head of that agency. He didn't know that was he didn't know what they did. He thought they were just in charge of drilling oil and stuff. No, one of the primary duties of the Department of Energy is actually dealing with nuclear weapons, right? And nuclear power. And so he's like, I didn't know that. Yeah, no kidding. Again, that was one of the departments that he famously had his oops moment, right? Where he couldn't name it. He's like, I want to get rid of 3 different departments. The Department of oops. Yeah, oops, indeed. That guy was literally in charge of our nuclear stockpile. And then, of course, there's Ben Carson, who's just basically sleeping at HUD. And that's it. Just 2 examples out of many. Head of the EPA, another great example from the chat here. But, okay, with that established, right, they are competent. And that's kind of the whole point. You want to run an agency to the ground, you just pick somebody who doesn't give a damn. But what about that vast conspiracy? That kind of stuck out to me. What is Jimmy Gomez talking about? Well, the supposed conspiracy is slowing down the mail to help Donald Trump in the election during a pandemic that is going to involve millions of additional mail-in ballots. Katie Porter alluded to this, right? When she asked about how many ballots, are how many mail-in ballots usually get sent through the mail every election, right? Again, this election, there's about to be tens of millions of more of those ballots going out because of the safety involving coronavirus, right? And so, well, that supposed conspiracy is that DeJoy is there and he's going to slow down the mail to make sure that the ballots don't get there on time. handing Donald Trump a win. But understand that's not really a conspiracy theory. I mean, Donald Trump pretty much admitted that, yeah, I would like to slow down the post office to make sure that mail-in ballots don't work, right? I mean, he told Fox News, if we do mail-in voting at levels that the Democrats want, a Republican would never win an election again. So not really a conspiracy, right? Really, in reality, it's people with money and their political futures at stake. And I would actually argue that Donald Trump has more at stake than just money, than just re-election. He might legitimately be worried that he's going to get arrested for financial crimes if he's not president. So again, not a conspiracy when the president blurts it out, as well as the fact that numerous Republicans over the years have also blurted it out. I mean, you can go back to the 1980s with Paul Ryrick, the godfather of the modern conservative movement. I always love showing the video, which ironically I don't have right now set up, but you guys have seen it plenty enough before, where he said, look, I don't want people voting. The less people vote, the more we win. That's kind of their justification, the internal justification of let's do voter suppression, right? This is why they do voter IDs. This is why they do voter purges, right? Of black people from the rolls. It's been proven that they've done that. Why they remove polling stations in minority areas. It's not that they're underused. Why is it that every single election, there seems to be these places that get slammed, right? With people waiting for 4 to 6 hours, right? In order to vote. It's because they remove polling stations. It's because they try to suppress the vote. There's no doubt in my mind that's what they're doing. And the evidence is all around. It's not a conspiracy. It's actually happening right in front of our faces. So I always have a problem with that, okay? And so we know what they're doing. This guy's helping himself, and he's helping the Republican Party continue to try to win elections. So he and the donors can make more money off the American taxpayer. So, as I said before, that's the problem. That's why he should resign. And other progressives have echoed that. For example, Bernie Sanders. Sanders tweeted this: Postmaster General needs to resign or be removed from office now. We need a Postmaster General who will work overtime to ensure the prompt delivery of mail, not a top Trump campaign contributor who is undermining the Postal Service and slowing down the mail. DeJoy must go. And by the way, speaking of, is DeJoy a Trump donor? Yes, he actually gave $1.2 million to the Trump Victory Fund. Back in 2016, he bankrolled Jeb Bush. So, interesting juxtaposition there, with Jeb Bush, obviously. Supposed to be a sound effect. There we go. Boy, that was a fail. Technological fail. Nonetheless, bankroll, going from bankrolling Jeb Bush to bankrolling Donald Trump, but also raising millions of dollars, of course, for the Republican National Convention, and had also donated millions to Republican organizations and candidates. And so it's not like DeJoy doesn't have a political motive here for trying to slow down and prevent Democrat votes from being counted. Again, it wouldn't be a conspiracy if we didn't have or maybe it would be a conspiracy if we didn't have all this evidence that Republicans have been trying to block the vote for decades. That's been their plan, and that's how they continue to win. And so props to congressmen and women, of course, Katie Porter, AOC, the members of the squad, for exposing this guy for who he is. Somebody who is, ignorant, but on purpose, purposely ignorant, and somebody who's trying to destroy the post office for his own political and personal gain.